going on, y'all? It's Will, and I'm out here working on this little Calypso coupe, and I've got a pre-intro to the intro. As you saw, this car rolled in here on a flatbed, and it had a no start issue. It would crank and turn over, but it would not start. So when I started diagnosing it, I was checking for spark, and it fired right up. So I was like, oh, the car magically fixed itself, you know, hoping against hope, like we always do with these cars, right? So I drove it up and down the road, let it sit here and idle for 10 minutes. And, you know, finally I was like, I can't fix a problem that's not existing. So the car was getting a Ken bell on it anyway. And of course the problem ended up rearing its ugly head once again. Enough of my rambling, let's get to the real intro. It has three things that I'm gonna cover today. And the first is the dash lights. When the car came here, the dash lights were absolutely not working at all. So I'll get into a little bit of how we diagnosed the problem, what we did to fix it, and we're putting LEDs in it as well. So we'll see what that looks like when we get done with it. But the second thing is, and if you look over my shoulder right here, there's a big white box. So this car is actually getting a Kenny Bell Supercharger. And I'm just gonna record it, and I'm not really gonna make it a how-to or anything because I have another video that you can go check out if you would like to, of 10 things that might help you get a Kenny Bell installed on your Foxbody. And the last thing I'm gonna cover on this car, as I was digging into it, it has a huge oil leak. The timing cover is just pouring oil. So I'm gonna tear all that down. The other thing I'm gonna do while I've got the timing cover off is I'm gonna see what cam is in this car because it has an unknown camshaft, and I'm kinda interested just to see what cam is in it. And last but not least, as always, we're gonna do a ride and drive, and we're gonna smoke some tires when this car is done. But guys, as you know, if you watched any of my videos, I like to talk and I like to yap. So let me shut the hell up and let's get into this little Foxbody. Always check your fuses in the fuse panel, and there was a blown fuse. So we replaced the fuse, but as soon as we turned the parking lights on, it blew the fuse again. So at that point, we knew we had to dig a little deeper. So we pulled everything apart and put a new fuse in, did not turn the parking lights on, and tested for power in the different locations of these harnesses where they should have power, and they did have power. So that was pointing us towards the instrument cluster itself being the problem. The other thing I wanted to point out, and we're gonna replace it, we're just waiting on the part to get here. This connector has a broken locking tab on it. And as far as I'm concerned, these connectors need to clip into the back of the instrument cluster correctly for it to operate correctly. I'm gonna walk over to the bench and show you what we found. We've already replaced everything that needed replacing, but I'll just show you what we found in case you're having a problem like this with your dash lights. You can tell that we've already placed the instrument cluster circuit board there, and we've already connected it, and it no longer pops a fuse. After we got it out, I mean, you can just see there's some of these ribbons are just everywhere, you know, and it had to have been shorting out because of the way these ribbons are. They're just kind of floating around. And then the broken connector didn't help, but we've changed that too. This is the old broken one. So it's all ready to go back in the car. Okay, dash lights are back working, but that's one problem knocked out. So let me get on this timing cover and fix this oil leak. And while we're at it, we'll find out what cam is in this car. Okay, so after all that work, I finally know what camshaft is in the car, and it's actually I've written some notes down, guys, because there's enough stuff floating around in this noodle already. But the cam is actually a Lenati cam, part number 51014. And when I looked up the specs on the cam, is very similar to a trick flow stage 1. And I will run through those specs now because I have them right here. So the Lunati cam has an RPM range of 2,000 to 6,000 RPMs. The trick flow has an RPM range of 2,000 to 5,500 RPMs. The advertised duration on the Lunati is 284, 292, whereas the trick flow is 275, 279. Lift on the Lunati is 500, 510, and the trick flow stage 1 is 499, 510. And the lobe separation angle on both camshafts is 112 degrees. Now that the mystery of the camshaft is solved, I'm gonna get everything back together, and then I'm gonna go light some tires up. This car has an aftermarket cowl induction hood on it, and it also had a 1-inch intake spacer, and it had some nice valve covers on it too. So what we decided to do was try to make all those things work with the Kenny bell. And when we set the Kenny bell on the 1-inch intake spacer, we had plenty of clearance for the valve cover, and to our surprise, in a good way, we had hood clearance with the snout of the blower. But what happened at that point was it caused our factory bracket that you modify, your power steering and AC bracket, it caused it to be an inch short where it bolts to the Kenny bell snout brace bracket. So what we did was we took one of these factory brackets and we modified it into this contraption right here so that it would work with the Kenny bell snout brace. The other issue we ran into by raising this blower 1 inch is that the Kenny bell tensioner pulley would no longer mount where they wanted it to mount there in that first hole, because if you did, the pulley, the belt, everything was all over this top belt. I mean, they were just on top of each other, so it was never going to work. So what we ended up doing is we found a good location for it, and we ended up drilling and tapping a new hole, and we've got clearance everywhere now. And the other thing we did was we ended up building a couple brackets for the AC compressor. So now it's actually mounted on all 4 legs, similar to a factory setup. So I can record the explosion. So this is the part of the video where the ignition problems came back. As you can see, the car was up and running, and I let it build some heat, and I got in it to start the tuning process, and I noticed it had a dead miss in it, and it got worse with RPM. You can see it had a pretty bad miss in it. The other thing that didn't make sense is that the oil pressure gauge was just going crazy the same time the tap was. So started diagnosing that. First thing I checked was the ignition switch at the steering column. And when those go bad, that's usually a no start symptom. But being as this car had come here with a no start, I just wanted to check it to make sure it was good to rule it out. So it checked good. So then I moved out to under the hood and I checked the coil. The coil was good. So then I'm just moving more and more towards the distributor because it was definitely ignition related. So, you know, TFIs go out sometimes, but this one actually had a dynamod on it. And I had never seen a dynamod module go bad, but I had another module. So I swapped it and the car cranked right up and ran fine. It ran great. So I was like, oh, it had a bad TFI on it. But that's not the end of the story. So he had an appointment to get the AC charged, so I wanted to make sure he made that appointment. And on the way there, the car went completely dead. And I was actually driving the car there for him, and I was like, here's his no start. It has finally came back. Unfortunately, we're on the side of the road at this point, so I test a few more things. I test the coil again. I've got a very weak spark at the distributor. I have no spark at the plug. So then that's definitely pointing to probably the pickup in the distributor. But fortunately at this point, the owner was like, you know it's the distributor. You verified it's the distributor. I'm tired of fighting with it. I'm buying a new distributor. So he bought an MSD distributor. It's in the car now. Car runs great. And all I got to do is get it tuned. right there just goes to show you guys that this stuff doesn't just happen to you. It happens to all of us. I mean, these Fox bodies will fight you tooth and nail. I mean, these cars are 30 plus years old now, and any little thing that can go wrong with them is going to. And I got 2 more examples over here. My little Fox body went for exhaust. Now it's going to turn into a fiasco with having to move fuel pump, fuel lines, all kinds of stuff like that. A little gray car I thought was gone for about the 4th time. The rack and pinion started pouring, and now he wants to get rid of the rusty rotors and put new rotors on it. So now we're waiting on rotors. Last thing, if I can moonwalk back here to let you see what's going on outside, you can see right there, I just had another one roll in. So guys, you can see that I'm pretty busy. So I'm gonna wrap this one up and I'm out.